quite surprised to see me doing this, considering that I did say I wasn't even planning on doing any more videos until Sunday, but I completely forgot that this new season of The Ultimate Fighter started, so I will be trying to catch up on the season. I don't think I'll do episode 2 tomorrow, maybe on Monday. I do want to see if I can push back the Backtrack episode of Little Peep to not this next week coming, but the week after. But yeah, I've got like, I was going to say 5 albums. This is not Music of the Week, this is The Ultimate Fighter. This is season 30, episode 1, titled Road to the Rematch. The coaches are Amanda Nunes and Julianna Pena, both women's champions. And we have quite a lot to go through, so let's go through things. So we begin with something unique. It is a common rule for The Ultimate Fighter. Basically, if you're a competitor on it, you are not allowed any contact with any family or friends in the outside world. You're in a house with a bunch of other people. You have to try and keep your shit together, right? But something that they've never done on the show before, or at least I've never seen on the show before, they started the episode with some of the fighters actually saying goodbye to the families. In fact, there's one moment where a fighter who's staying at a hotel, who knows he's going to the season, is visited by a producer on the show, and that producer tells him, and the fighter's name is Nyle, to talk to his family and say goodbye to them because he's not going to be able to talk to them for 6 weeks. And I've never seen that actually done. It would be nice to actually see it a bit more, maybe next year when they do season 31, if they do season 31. But it was actually kind of cool to see something like that. It's very unique, not something I've ever seen on The Ultimate Fighter, but it's actually really cool. As for other really cool things that you don't see often, the coaches have a house. Now, they don't actually share it. It's more used as like, you know, one team goes in there to sort something out and the other team does as well. And what they were doing, what both teams were doing, was they were deliberating which fighters to have on their team, and they both had very interesting styles of picking. Julianna and her team wanted to pick people who had plenty of experience. They didn't care about undefeated records or not. And believe it or not, Team Nunes' take on it was the same. They want fighters that have tons of experience and have better records than what Julianna's team is hoping for. But it was actually kind of cool to see it anyway. And I am honestly glad that the coaches are able to get something like this, because I did often find it awkward when fighters wanted to pick when coaches wanted to pick fighters for a season, that they'd have to go and visit Dana in his office every time, and they would probably let their blood boil a little bit and just get mad at each other. It's, you know, classic rivalry bait for an Ultimate Fighter season. But I like that they actually got their own room and they were in there at separate times to sort out who they wanted. We then get a brief history lesson as to why we have the two coaches that we do. That reason being that in late 2021, Julianna Pena defeated Amanda Nunes for her Bantamweight championship. Amanda is still the current Featherweight champ, but Pena is the current Bantamweight champ. And yeah, we just got like a little video package to show exactly what happened with Julianna defeating Amanda via submission. And Dana even chipped in and said these two do not like each other, and I was just thinking, like, Dana, you say that every season, but for the most part so far, I know I've only got one episode to go off of and about 50 minutes of like material in said episode, but like they seemed pretty amiable towards each other. They didn't seem super hateful. And Amanda Nunes does not seem like the resentful type. Maybe that's just me. But then again, you know, Dana's the president of the company. He's got to sell the flight somehow. Speaking of history, we have a special guest for this episode, and hopefully for the rest of the season. The winner of season... Well, one of the winners of season 1, because people often forget that Diego Sanchez was technically the first winner of the Ultimate Fighter. But still, the winner of season 1, Forrest Griffin, my personal UFC hero, is on this show, and I really hope he's not just there like in this one episode. I hope he gets to continue showing up, because he actually like gave the fighters a history lesson, told them about his journey to the top, and he said, as modestly as he can, he did alright for himself. And I love Forrest so much because he's never had that big of an ego, and it's hard not to love him. He's a good dude. But anyway, yeah, he does explain to the fighters what's what, basically doing the thing that Dana would usually do, giving him a speech, but Forrest actually giving a more human version of that speech, I guess you could call it. And then we get the coin toss, and we will talk briefly about the team colours. So Team Nunes is red, Team Julianna Pena, or sorry, just Team Pena, is black. So there you go, we get the coin toss, and if I remember right, I think Team Nunes wins and they pick the first fighter. So the teams and the weight classes we have are heavyweights and women's flyweights, just to round that out. So the teams we have for Team Pena, we have on heavyweight, Muhammad Usman, yes, if that surname sounds familiar, that's Kamaru's brother, Zach Pauga, Jordan Hederman, Bobby Maximus, and women's flyweights are Helen Peralta, Juliana Miller, Hannah Guy, or Guy, I don't know how to pronounce it, and Chantal Coates. On Team Nunes, we have the heavyweights Eduardo Perez, Chandler Cole, Mitchell Sipe, and Nyle Bartling, and the women's flyweights Claire Guthrie, Brogan Walker-Sanchez, Caitlin Nyle, and Catherine Paprocki. We then get to the TUF house itself, and it looks pretty much the same as last year, although I do like how excited the fighters are to be there. Like, it's pretty much why I bring up the TUF house every time I review the first episode of the season, because it's just so cool to see the fighters in this kind of environment just being all happy. Some of them like rushing to get certain rooms. Forrest even gives them a piece of advice saying to pick a room quick because you don't want to get the worst one, and I was like, that seems fair enough. I mean, if Forrest Griffin tells you that, if he told me that, I would fucking listen. But I'm also bringing it up because there's a moment where Julianna Miller from Team Pena and Mitchell from Team Nunes actually talk about people in the opposite team. So Mitchell talks about Muhammad Usman, who's on Team Pena, saying that he almost fought him before, and Julianna fought someone from Team Nunes. I don't remember what the name was she gave, but yeah, they actually, it was interesting to see that history. It's not something you get a lot in The Ultimate Fighter, but I actually quite liked it. Not really much else to talk about after that, so we'll just move on to the training and the coaching methods of the coaches of this season. So, Team Pena, well, rather Julianna herself, very aggressive coaching style, but still at the same time very fun. She likes to mix things up a little bit more. She's a bit, controlled chaos is the term she used to describe her coaching style. And having watched her, like, perform it, yeah, that seems pretty accurate. At least her coaching is, like, really, really good. I was going to say adequate. No, it's not. It's not adequate. It's really, 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 really good. She knows what she's doing. And Team Nunes seems to have a bit more fun with it. I was not expecting to see Amanda Nunes smile this much and just have fun. She was enjoying training her fighters and coaching them. It was actually just really nice to see. But after that, we get the fight announcement for the first fight of the first episode of the 30th season of The Ultimate Fighter. And it's Zach Pauga from Team Pena versus Nyle, which accidentally spelled as Nyle in my notes, against Nyle, what's his name? Bartling. There we go, Nyle Bartling. And both fighters sort of make weight because it's the heavyweight division. They're allowed a lot more leeway. And then we go into something I'm so glad they're keeping, which is the video packages and the backgrounds and where they're from. So if I remember right, Zach is from Denver, Colorado, or at least from around there. Nyle is from somewhere in Nebraska, and I think his name, I think the city name in particular was Unadilla or something. It's got a strange name, I remember that much. And they're both talking about their old jobs. I mean, there's a moment where they're actually sat in the house and talking to each other about the stuff they used to do. Zach actually used to train in American football and rugby, and eventually he became a criminal investigations officer. He was actually a detective. And I thought that was kind of cool. As Nyle, however, he was born on a farm. He mostly just raises a lot of pigs and obviously cows and stuff. Old school Nebraska farm boy. And he does tell a story, does Nyle, about one time when he went with his brother Dylan to go hunting, and one of their guns jammed. So when they returned home, and Nyle was checking out in the garage, he had the barrel pressed against his foot, and as he was trying to clean something around it, the gun went off. And he literally shot himself in the foot with a hunting rifle. And a brief shot was shown of it, and it was kind of nasty to look at, but thankfully all of his foot is still there, and still functioning and still working. And yeah, pretty nasty story, but I'm glad that Nyle's okay. Then get to the prep for the fighters, and for Zach it's very, very simple. Avoid Nyle's wrestling, try and just keep his distance. Don't throw any leg kicks, because if you throw a leg kick and you're against the wrestler will try and take it from you. Try and keep your distance, try and use your reach. Zach is the much faster person between the two, so that's the advice that Pena gives him. Use your speed, use your timing, use your strikes, because you've got really good hands. And Nyle's training is basically just wrestle, just stick to what you know. Try and go for smarter takedowns, and yeah, just stick to the game plan. Just do what you usually do, try and get him down, try and finish him, try and ground pound him until the ref stops you, try and submit him. Basically, yeah, just Nunes giving Nyle the advice that he's probably heard throughout his entire career by this point. And I think it's worth noting as well, really quickly, that both fighters have undefeated records, so yeah, that's worth bringing up before we get into the fight, so let's get into the fight. And we then get to the main point of the Ultimate Fighter, which is the fight between the fighters, Zach versus Nyle. Very close in age, close in record. I think Nyle has one more victory than Zach does, but they're both undefeated. And for the most part, it is sort of a feeling out process at the beginning. Zach is throwing a particular move. He's going for an overhand right and then trying to go for a takedown. He's not landing the overhand right too many times, and there's an early one where he goes for that sort of exchange. Zach counters with a really good punch. and manages to sort of like knock him down. He does a nasty jab earlier though to Zach. Like Nyle has a surprisingly good jab, but yeah, Zach manages to sort of like counter something with a punch and knock him down, and has him in sort of like a sprawl position. Starts landing a lot of blows on him. Starts landing some hammer fist. Almost hits him in the back of the head too many times, but Nyle manages to recover quite well and manages to get back up. And he's sort of keeping his distance. He's a bit wary of Zach striking after that, and Zach sees an opening, and he's throwing some really good hooks. He's throwing some really good body shots as well, and he's got Nyle on the back foot for a lot of round one. Nyle does actually get a takedown in round one, and there's a moment like with a couple of minutes left where he does have some control of Zach against the cage. Zach manages to break out, manages to just outstrike and outpace Nyle in round one, and round one is fairly close. Nyle does land some really good strikes, but round one, close as it is, I do give it to Zach. He was using his distance a lot more. His head movement was actually really good. Like, he's definitely way too fast for a heavyweight. Moves really, really well. His striking was great. His jab was quite accurate. So yeah, round one I give to Zach. And round two starts, and it starts really well for Nyle. He lands a hell of an overhand right, and then tries to go for a takedown and doesn't get it. And it's clear by this point that he's starting to get really, really tired after what he was put through in round one. Because this is something that Forrest actually points out next to Dana, because they're sat at like the table. This is the only thing I can think of to call it is the table. But Forrest actually points out that between the two, all of Nile's wins he's finished, and all of Zach's wins, well, most of Zach's wins have gone the distance. And considering that Zach doesn't have many wins, only like 5-0, that is a very interesting fact to keep in mind. And it's actually a fact that probably worked against Nyle, as he kept looking for that big overhand right and takedown combo over and over again, but Zach kept countering. He did throw a front kick, which I think was meant to go to the body, but accidentally hit... Nyle threw a front kick, I should specify. That was meant to go to the body, but accidentally hit Zach in the ghoulies. And the ref, who was Mark Smith, I think, for this one, gave Zach the time he needed to recover. And Zach did recover well, and even though Nyle was actually landing some really good body kicks and some good strikes, Zach was out landing him really, quite well. Nyle was getting desperate for takedowns. He was just not putting as much effort into them, wasn't trying to mask them with anything other than an overhand right, and it got really predictable. Zach started picking up on it really well. He had Nyle down a little bit. He did start ground pounding him, and he finished the round and the fight because, you know, in this early part of the competition it's only 2 rounds, so it's 10 minutes in total. But yeah, after countering a takedown, Zach manages to get on top of Nyle and land some really good ground and pounds, some really good elbows before the ref stops the fight as the bell ends. By which I specify the fight is over because the bell ended and the ref stood them up. And no real need for a round 3. Zach, even though he was on the back foot for a good couple of moments, gets the win, and first win for Team Pena. So in the aftermath of the fight, Nyle is lamenting his loss, pretty much saying immediately that he wants to go back home after this, and I'm just thinking to myself, dude, it's the first fight of the season, there's a very good chance he could always come back, you know, if someone else gets injured or just can't make it to a fight, even can't make weight, you know? I mean, it's pretty impossible for a heavyweight to not make weight, especially in the Ultimate Fighter. But you never know, it's not completely over for you, you know. Zach is very congratulatory towards his opponent in the backstage sort of area, and yeah, he's quite happy to afford him. And it was really nice to see Zach being quite cordial about it, even though obviously, because of it being like in a backstage place, he's not really directly saying it to Nyle, he's just saying it to a cameraman and stuff, and just hyping himself up. And even when he gets back to Team Pena's room, Pena points to him and says, "You took it all away from him," and I was like, yeah, damn right you did. So, not really much else to say besides the next fight for the next episode, which is a fight that goes to Team Pena because they won the fight, so they get to keep control of the fights that they pick. And yeah, because if Nunes had won, they would pick the fights, but Team Pena won, so they get to pick the fights. And they pick Helen Peralta from Team Pena versus Caitlin Neal from Team Nunes, and I am looking forward to that fight. So that being said, this was a really great way to return to the Ultimate Fighter. I thought that the fight was pretty interesting. I like that the start was a very unique one as well, because you don't actually get to see the fighters often saying goodbye to their loved ones this early on. Like last year when they did that, you got to see them like in the last moments, and there was even a moment halfway through, or rather near the end of that season, where they were allowed internet access so that they could talk to their families. But to get them actually doing it at the beginning, like, that was kind of cool. I thought this entire episode was really good, great way to start the season. Like, the fight itself wasn't a super good one, well, it wasn't a super great one, but it was really good, is what I meant to say. So yeah, not really much else to say. Next thing I'll see for tonight, Deck the Brawls. don't miss it on my Twitch. And then next video will possibly be Fight Night on this Sunday. I don't know what I'm doing with my fingers here. And then on Monday, another episode, review of The Ultimate Fighter. Tuesday episode 3, Wednesday episode 4. And then the week after that, I'll do the Lobby Power Tracking episode. I'm sorry for having to delay it so much. And that'll be it to it. I can't really think of much else to say. I'll see you all, most likely, on Sunday, but definitely tonight, as always. Thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.